Hey there, ready for a deep dive? We're going to be tackling a thinker who really shook up how we think about something. Well, we kind of take it for granted. Time. Henri Bergson. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, quite a mind. Maybe not as a household name as Einstein, but Bergson, he was wrestling with some equally huge questions about reality. Oh, this is back in the early 1900s.
You sent in some really great stuff on Bergson. That article, the one on his ideas, that really caught my eye. What's amazing is how relevant it still is.
Yeah.
Everything's about tracking, optimizing, fitting it all in. And Bergson makes you wonder if we're missing something about time itself.
Yeah, he was already pushing back then against that whole mindset. See, the trend, it was all about treating the universe like this giant machine, something you could take apart and analyze piece by piece.
Like a bunch of clockmakers, right?
Right.
Trying to take apart the whole cosmos.
Exactly. But Bergson, he argued that this approach, well, it's useful, but it's fundamentally limited. Like, imagine trying to understand a river that way.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, you could analyze the water, right? Like its chemical composition or the current, how fast it's moving. You could even categorize all the fish.
But you're never going to really grasp, what the river is.
Right. It's the flow, the constant change. That's the essence of it.
And that's where, and I saw this term duration, that's where that comes
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Duration. That's how Bergson describes our lived experience of time. Not just the clock ticking, but how we experience it internally. Think
Huh.
about it. 5 minutes in a dentist chair. 5 minutes. Lost in a good book.
Totally different.
Same clock time. Completely different experience.
So our feelings, what they actually influence how we perceive time.
It's a huge deal because it challenges that whole mechanistic view. We're not just these passive observers of time, we're active participants. Our consciousness, emotions, all of it, it shapes how time unfolds for us.
See, that's wild because you just think of time as this rigid thing.
Yeah.
My watch says 10.05, that's it.
And Bergson's not saying that's wrong. That measured time, scientific time, it has its place. But it's incomplete. It's like you're only looking at a single frame from a whole movie. You got the data, the information, but you're missing the movement, the
Right.
story.
So it's like science is giving us the what of time, but Bergson, he wants us to get the how.
And that's crucial. That experience of duration, that flow, that's the heart of what makes us human. It's where we get creativity, intuition, those aha moments, all of that.
So how do we tap into this other way of understanding? In the material you showed, I noticed Bergson talks about two ways of knowing: intellect and intuition.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
He makes a fascinating distinction there. It's not like one is good and one is bad.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Okay, so the intellect, that's like using a map to navigate.
Right.
Right. It's precise, helps you get from point A to B.
Yeah.
But intuition is more like you just know the terrain.
Yeah.
You feel the shifts in the path.
Like I might be great at reading a map, but a local guide, they've walked those trails 1,000 times.
Yeah, exactly.
They just know.
They just know. And that's what, Bergson was getting at. The intellect, while super essential for, navigating the physical world, it can't fully grasp everything.
Right.
Like consciousness, emotion, creativity, those require intuition, different way of knowing.
Okay, but that's where it gets tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because intuition, it's so, how do you even grasp at that?
It's not about equations. It's not about formulas.
Okay.
Bergson believed it was about paying attention to your direct experience,
Yeah.
that gut feeling that's really hard to put into words.
Yeah.
But it points us in the right direction.
So it's less about the data. It's more about trusting those instincts, those flashes of insight we often just ignore.
Exactly. Like think about a time you had a hunch about something, maybe a decision. And even though you couldn't explain why, you just knew.
Yeah. It just felt right.
It just felt right.
That's so funny because that makes me think about all those stories of scientific discoveries, those
Yeah.
eureka moments.
Yeah.
It's the answer just pops into their head
And there's oh.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It changes the world.
Exactly. Those moments, that sudden insight, it's like connecting these totally different ideas, right?
Yeah.
That's intuition playing a huge role. Bergson argued that intuition it's like the driving force behind real innovation, and not just in science, in art, music.
Yeah.
Anywhere that real creative leap happens.
Like there's a certain like magic to it, a spark.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't explain it with logic.
And for Bergson, that spark, that creative force, it's not just in us, it's in everything. It's like woven into life itself.
That makes me think about, oh man, what a term this is, the élan vital.
Right.
It sounds like it's like straight out of a fantasy novel or something.
It's a term that stays with you.
It does, it does. But I have a feeling it's a lot more profound than it sounds. So the élan vital.
Yeah.
It does kind of sound like, I don't know, something Gandalf would say, right?
It's definitely a term. It sticks with you. But behind that name, it's a really powerful idea. See, Bergson, he was challenging that view of evolution, the one that everyone had back then, as this like purely mechanical process.
Survival of the fittest.
Exactly. And he felt like it was like missing something big, like a creative drive, this inherent push toward like more complexity, more diversity, which we see everywhere.
So not just like surviving,
Yep.
but an actual like force
Yeah.
that makes life become more.
Yeah. Think about flight.
Okay.
Had that happen. It wasn't just like, a straight line species. Oh, their wings just got bigger each generation.
Right, right.
There were these leaps, almost like creative bursts. You get things like feathers, hollow bones, adaptations you could never predict just from looking at, what came before.
So it's those leaps, those moments where like evolution it zigs instead of zags,
Yeah.
That's the élan vital.
Exactly. This creative impulse, this vital force, it pushes life
Mm-hmm.
beyond just adaptation. It's like toward this greater diversity, more and more complexity. It's like there's this drive in nature to experiment, to innovate, to become something new.
So almost like saying there's an artist's hand in there.
Yeah.
Guiding those brushstrokes. But instead of a canvas, it's life.
That's a great analogy. And that's where I think this gets really interesting for us. Like today, we think data, efficiency, outcomes.
Right.
But Bergson's reminding us, life, it's full of surprises, it's messy, it's unpredictable, driven by, well, something we may never really get.
Which, when you think about it, our to-do lists, productivity hacks,
Right.
that's pretty radical. Like he's saying it's okay to let go, not control everything.
Oh, yeah. Embrace a little wonder.
A little wonder. I love that.
And it goes back to, like our experiences, right? Think about those times when you had real inspiration or a genuine connection or you had some breakthrough. You were being creative. Those things don't usually happen on schedule.
No, they don't.
They kind of emerge when you least expect them, when you're open to the unexpected.
So are you saying, like, instead of always trying to optimize everything,
Yeah.
we should be more open to those Bergsonian, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Those moments
Yeah.
of surprise
Yeah.
and intuition.
It's something to think about, right? Bergson's making us rethink our whole relationship with time, creativity, with even what it means to like be alive. He says there's got to be more to it than what we can just measure or predict. And maybe, just maybe, if we lean into that, the uncertainty, the unknown, that's how we start to really get it. Ourselves, the world.
Wow. He's really given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So, okay, to kind of sum up our deep dive into Bergson, time, it's not a straight line. Intuition, it's important.
Yeah.
And life, it might just be way more wild and creative than we give it credit for.
That's a great way to put it. And if you take away just one thing, let it be this. What if, instead of trying to pin it all down, we get curious, a little more open to the mystery? Who knows what you might find?
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And remember, sometimes those are the best journeys, the ones that take you off the map.